The regular season in college football officially over. Now it's time to look forward to the SEC championship game. Alabama versus Florida. Ryder Sabin joins me now to talk about some of the highlights of Nick Saban's press conference, and we got to talk about that rant. Nick Saban not very happy about the fact that us media members like to downplay all the bowl games and all the other teams that are playing for keeps this season. Tell me about that rant of Nick Saban and how that all came about.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk about how Alabama can probably walk into the college football playoff, now that they're undefeated, and if they suffered a loss against Florida, they could still make it and still accomplish all their goals this season. So that was kind of the genesis of the question that led to him ranting about not wanting to ever lose a game and how that should never be okay. And certainly he has a point. One of the things that I'm surprised he didn't mention was the fact that a lot of media members have talked about that you should be your conference champion in order to make the college football playoffs. So that would have added to his argument. And he didn't raise that. Instead, he chose to use the forum to talk about how he's always thinking about winning. And so it was pretty standard Nick Saban response in that situation.
Yeah, we can't go too many weeks without one of those great Nick Saban rants. Now, looking at Florida, they're pretty banged up. Now, statistically speaking, the defense, one of the best defenses Alabama will face all season. Nick Saban talked about it today. But certainly a lot of guys bruised up, banged up. What can we expect from their defensive output on Saturday?
Well, I think, that's a good question. I mean, they have a lot of injured players. They possibly more than a dozen players, many of them starters, could not play on both sides of the ball, including, their leading tackler, Alex Anzalone, and then you have Jared Davis, Brian Cox Jr., Jordan Sherritt, and possibly Duke Dawson, who's their nickel cornerback. So they could really be compromised from a health standpoint and personnel standpoint come Saturday. And then, Alabama certainly has been challenged offensively when they have faced a good defense. Even in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, but with Florida not having its best personnel out there, Alabama's offense should be able to probably move the ball effectively and score points.
When you look at Alabama, of course, when you're entering Week 14 this season, everyone's banged up right now. Of course, Alabama experiencing some of that themselves. What are some of those injury updates that you have for us today?
Well, they seem to be pretty healthy for now. I mean, obviously Cam Robinson and Corin Kirby ended up playing. Cam Robinson was the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, in fact. So they're good. Marlon Humphrey's the one question mark. He had a hamstring injury in the second half against Auburn. And it seems like, from what Nick Saban said, that they're hopeful that he will play. They might scale him back in practice. He probably wouldn't practice. Again, those soft tissue injuries are something that, is sometimes hard to gauge. And I think that they'll probably take him slowly going into the week against Florida. The good thing about that, though, is that, again, Florida doesn't have a very dynamic passing attack. And so, they probably could even go without Marlon in this game and be okay.
All right, Reiner, thank you so much for those updates. We appreciate it as always. And, of course, I will see you in the ATL.